Okay, we're going to do a quick overview to the paint room. So I'm clicked paint directly on object. So this is the texture size. I'm going to go at 2K for this example. And if you want, you can set it to not be square if you have a non-square UVs, which I find very useful at times. So anyway, we're going to start with just a 2K map and the basics. So you have your tools, which is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure you figured out. You have layers, so the layer palette is pretty useful for, I think, for color control. So you make another one layer and you just layer it just like Photoshop. So they also have the layer methods, so you have fine-tuned control. Of the tools, for the most part I use the paintbrush, obviously the eraser. You can only erase the layer you're on, and I mean, this paint with splines tool, I already had something on that, so this is also kind of fun. And then you can come back here, just clicking on something, you can move it and you can scale it with right mouse button, and you can get some specific, hit enter, you can have some specific paint flows. Because I didn't have enough steps, you can see like it tried to go through, and so it'll basically do the best job it can, but it'd probably be a better idea to get closer to the surface so it doesn't have to interpolate through. Or you can go and just use the paint menu, the E menu that has the spline painting now, which is a very similar method. Let's go back to normal brush. So what else? We have masks. So masks, I think, is kind of self-explanatory because we all know what a mask does if we've ever used Photoshop. I would hope you know what a mask is. So this is the way you control it. You click on here and then just drag the mouse around, and you pan around. This will scale up, and this will rotate. So now I'm painting with a mask. You see it doesn't paint where it's black and it does paint where it's white, or the other way around. I didn't check. Excuse me. So the other aspect that's very useful for 3D, I'm just going to delete this layer, make a new one, is the channels. So you can paint specular, diffuse, and normal. Right now you can see it's pretty obvious if they're enabled or not. And if I go to a material, we can click a material and you can see that. So right now it's going to multiply blue onto it. If I wanted to do a material and try to get the color from the material, I'd want to have white. So right now it's trying to guess the normal information even though there isn't normal. So you can see right here there's a dot to say if there's normal information in there. But if you turn on normal, even if I paint with just a normal blue brush, it's going to have a funny look to it because it's actually painting normal information. So you can see it bumps up based on that. So if you were going to paint, you obviously would want, if you wanted to paint in a way that you would expect the brush to behave. So you can see that it's just having normal information. So that's pretty useful. But you can also, let's go back to skin. You could just do your own skin tone if you were an elephant or something. A green elephant, perhaps. And then you have, so it seems like that still exists, but anyway, something to play with. So these are the materials. You can make a new one by hitting new. And the other aspect I want to show is the texture editor. So the texture editor doesn't appear as a window. It's not in Windows pop-up. It's under Textures, Texture UV Editor. And so even though I'm in symmetrical paint mode, if I paint directly onto the UVs, it's obviously not going to be symmetrical because Actually, let's turn that off, because I'm only painting really specifically on the UV map. If you zoom out, it can get kind of confusing because it like just tiles. So you can hit wireframe and see a little bit more specifically what your object is or where it is. So I find that useful. I mostly find this useful to make sure I'm painting all the way to the edge of the of any given island, making sure that there's no gaps. I mean, there's not generally gaps when you do it this way, but sometimes I just come in here and just make sure if I'm just trying to fill in a color. But anyway, these are a quick overview to the paint room, and I would just recommend playing around, trying things out, and experimenting.